Hey guys, welcome to our demo today. We'll be talking about basic introduction to painting simple objects. So in this case, we got a photograph of an apple, and I've opened up an image to the left and started painting on it. So I want you guys to see what this looks like. So like the painting version and then the actual image. If I click on this image, you can see my draw layer is right there. So my draw layer shows like where the actual lines of the object are. I use that to paint. And then I've got my paint layer, which sits on top of the actual apple. So I can sample colors and then paint on top of it, and that helps to kind of create that image, and it looks like an actual painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to actually create a separate window so that you can look at the image to the left and then also paint on the image at the right. So I'm going to close this one real quick. I'm going to select my background image. So once you open up your photograph of the apple, you can select all, Control A, and then copy, Control C. And then I'm going to go File and then New. And then I'll do from my clipboard, it's going to be 1024 by 1024. I'll hit Create, and then I'll do Control V. And that just pastes the image of the apple into this, this new tab. And so you can see I've got one tab, second tab. My first one is where I actually have my painting layer. And my second tab is where the actual image is. So let's just assume that this one's the one that we'll actually be looking at for reference. So at the top of your menu bar, you're going to go to Arrange, and then you can do 2 up vertical. And that allows you to see the 2 images or 2 separate tabs side by side. And this can be super helpful if, say, like you're painting on this layer right here with your brush tool, and you want to pull a color from this side. So I can hold Alt, I can sample, and then I can paint over here on the right. And so it's a great way to like look at something and then bring it over into your other image. I'm going to turn my paint layer off, and I'm going to first start by just talking about the drawing layer. And so I'm just going to take these 2 layers and I'll just say see you later, goodbye. And then in my background layer, I'm going to just build up my two layers. So one, the layer that I'll paint on, and then the second will be the draw layer. So let's actually do this on the right image. So I'm going to click on here. I'm going to delete my background layer if it's there, and I'm going to create a new layer. So this will be my draw layer, and I'll label it draw. So with the draw layer, I'm going to just use a black color. So my color picker, I'll choose black. And then I'm going to go to my dry media brushes, and I'll use the Kyle Ultimate Pencil Hard. So I'm just going to click on that and click out of that window. And then I'm just going to zoom in here and just like trace things. And so I'm going to look for cross contour lines or lines that kind of just describe like where this apple actually is. So I'll go around to here. I'm going to stop there, pull to this point. I'm going to describe the stem, and then keep going around. Again, using my spacebar hand grab to help navigate around the image. So there I've got just like a basic line drawing. Again, this is going to be useful for just understanding like where we're going to actually throw some paint into this image. So we'll get the shadow there. Then the last thing I'm going to do is just describe like the back wall line that's right here. So there we go. So that's my line drawing, and that's just showing like where the different parts of the image are. And we're going to have this layer on the top so that as I paint, I can keep it in front so I know like where the apple actually exists in the background, and so I won't actually lose it. So let's get into our paint layer. So I'm going to click a new layer, and I'm going to call this one Paint. And I'm going to drag it below the draw layer so that any mark I make will show up underneath the drawing, and then I can always turn the drawing layer off. So going into my brush presets, I'm going to grab a Kyle's Real Oil #1. And we're basically just we're gonna paint on top. So we're gonna eyedrop colors on the apple, and then try to paint them in the same locations right on top of this image. So first thing I'll do is maybe paint the background. So I'm gonna just start by sampling the foreground layer, and I can hold Alt and click on this image to the right, and then that allows me to just like throw in those colors there. When you notice it changes in color, like just in this lower left-hand corner, you can sample the color again and then just make it darker. And the goal here is just to fill in the entire composition and somehow like get a sense of those colors as they exist in the background. So I'm just going to paint this in, and I'm going to try to move pretty quickly here. Notice you can see my drawing is maintained because my paint is below that layer. There we go. So that's kind of like my basic foreground color there. And if I want to kind of fill out those empty spaces, I can just take my brush tool again, alt clicking to sample the color, and then I'm just like very, very quickly just like painting in those like negative spaces where things seem to like not be opaque. Okay. Looking good. You can see my drawing layer, and I'll bring the apple back in there. I'm going to sample my shadow color, maybe make my brush a little bit smaller with my brackets. There we go. Let's paint in our background. Again, holding Alt, you can sample the color and then just paint it in. Here you might want to be a little bit more careful. You're going to paint to the actual lines that you're creating. So click and drag. Pull these colors down. You'll notice like by changing your brush direction, you may also get some different effects as you effects that seem to be a bit more successful if you paint them and change the actual direction of the marks. So I'm going to do this kind of like halo effect around the apple, kind of make the brush strokes kind of like create an arc-like shape. So again, holding Alt, every time you see that little eyedropper show up, that means I'm changing the colors and trying to like mimic that same like effect in the background. The background can be pretty rough, so you don't have to make it super perfect. Some interesting like neutrals showing up in there. All right. And then just so that you guys get like the bare bones basic to this, then I want you to pick like 2 or 3 colors on the apple and see if you can actually create the 3-dimensional form of that apple just using color. And so one of the things I'll say is like, you know, when you look in the core shadow where it gets darker, try to get that dark color. And this is where you might want to be a little bit more careful with how you place those marks. So just try to cover up any colors that are kind of bleeding. We get like the dark side of the apple here. And it's starting to get light, so I'm going to sample that new color. I'll start to lighten up. Some kind of like yellowy colors that come in here. Got this interesting kind of green that's kind of almost odd. It's like a part of the apple that just didn't ripen all the way. So those are like the basic shapes that I'm seeing, the basic colors as they transition. Again, I went more than 3 colors. And we got the last colors in the back here. All right. A little bit of stem. darken it up. And this, for like your first painting, I'm going to say is okay. So I'm going to turn the line drawing off, and you can kind of see like this three-dimensional form is starting to show up. We've got color that changes from a shadow side to a light side, and we've got the whole background that's new painted strokes, just using our Kyle Real Oils #1 brush. And so this is going to be our goal. Again, using the eyedropper tool, having a separate image of the apple up to the side, and then just replacing all those pixels of the photo on a new layer with the paintbrush. So the last thing I would probably do is just like go in here and fill in all the cracks. So I'm just going to do that really quick, and then I'll call this demo done. And now I'm just sampling colors that are already on the canvas, just to fill in these last little areas. If you move fast, the job gets done sooner. It's kind of fun to work through it quickly. Change your brush to help adjust the right marks. And since I know you guys don't want to see me just like paint forever, I'm gonna call that like fairly complete. All those like little gray spots are now filled up. All right, so there you go. Taking a common image, using the brush tool, and then trying to repaint all those parts just using your basic brush. Again, it's got this kind of rough, handmade kind of effect to it. And we'll call this good. Like this will be the target for what I want you to turn in for this assignment.